Hollywood didn't just silence Jim Carrey. According to the internet, they may have replaced the version of him people actually loved. The reason this story feels so disturbing isn't because people think something weird happened overnight. No, it's because fans believe the signs were there for years, hiding in Dave Chappelle didn't need to say much. That's the scary part. He never comes out directly and says this person was targeted. He never points fingers in a clean, straightforward way. Instead, he talks in fragments, breadcrumbs.
Dave Chappelle has brought a very unusual Hollywood topic back into the spotlight. This time, Jim Carrey is right at the center of the speculation. Online, a lot of people keep circling around the same idea. Was there a point when Jim stopped going along with certain powerful circles in the industry? Ever since that theory started spreading, viewers have claimed they noticed a shift in everything about him. His presence felt different, his interviews sounded different, even his appearance became part of the conversation. That is where the bigger question starts to take shape. What actually happens when a celebrity pushes back against the system around them? Why does the reaction seem so intense whenever a major star stops following the expected script? In Jim Carrey's case, that question stands out even more because he was never the kind of name people imagined would end up tied to these kinds of rumors. After all, this is Jim Carrey, one of the most recognizable comedy icons Hollywood has ever created.
And they claimed happened to other celebrities. Speak out, disappear, return quieter, return calmer, return changed. And once fans started comparing Jim to names like Kanye West, Gucci Mane, and Britney Spears, the entire situation spiraled into chaos. Because think about it, Jim Carrey openly mocked celebrity culture, publicly dismantled the meaning of fame.
His career was built on explosive energy, wild physical performances, unforgettable facial expressions, and a larger-than-life style that almost nobody could imitate. He didn't just become famous, he became one of those rare performers who felt completely original the moment he appeared on screen. That is exactly why this conversation feels so unexpected. When a personality that huge seems to change, people pay attention fast. According to people who claim to know how the industry works, there was a moment somewhere along the way when something about Jim seemed to shift. The public started noticing it little by little, but whispers from inside Hollywood made the story even more intriguing. Dave Chappelle in particular has made comments that some viewers believe were pointing toward the idea that this change was not simply random or natural. He never framed it in a simple, direct way, which only gave the internet more room to speculate. Before jumping to conclusions, though, it helps to step back and look at how this story developed. None of this appeared overnight. The conversation had been building for years. Long before people started connecting his name to deeper Hollywood theories, Jim Carrey had already begun standing apart from the image that fame usually demands.
Stood on red carpets basically telling the world Hollywood was one giant performance with no soul left inside it. And according to online narratives, Hollywood allegedly does not appreciate celebrities publicly tearing apart the illusion that keeps the machine alive. Especially not celebrities with influence powerful enough to wake audiences up.
He was speaking in a way that felt different from the polished celebrity language audiences are used to hearing. Instead of celebrating the machine, he started questioning it. Rather than treating fame like the ultimate prize, he talked about it as if it were hollow. In interviews, he sounded less interested in playing the role of a grateful star and more interested in pulling the curtain back on what celebrity culture really is. That made people uncomfortable. Hollywood usually rewards people who keep the illusion alive. Jim seemed increasingly willing to challenge it in public. That is one reason this story keeps pulling people in. It is not just about a famous actor acting differently. It is about what happens when somebody who helped define the entertainment world suddenly starts talking as if the whole thing is artificial. Once he began describing the industry as empty and performative, audiences started re-examining everything, every appearance, every quote, every moment that seemed slightly off suddenly looked more significant. Chappelle's role in all of this only adds another layer. When someone like him hints that there may be more behind the scenes than the public realizes, people listen. He has a way of saying just enough to spark curiosity without fully explaining what he means. That style leaves room for interpretation, and in a story like this, interpretation spreads fast.
And then people started revisiting Dave Chappelle's own history. That's where things got darker. Dave walked away from one of the biggest deals in comedy history, millions of dollars sitting on the table.
So now the Jim Carrey conversation has become bigger than one celebrity. It has turned into a symbol of a much larger suspicion about Hollywood itself. People are not only asking what changed with him, they are asking what his story might reveal about the pressures, expectations, and strange dynamics that exist behind the scenes of fame. And that is exactly why this topic refuses to go away. What he was saying started to land differently. In the beginning, most people brushed it aside and assumed Jim was just being deep or reflective. It sounded like the kind of abstract, philosophical talk celebrities sometimes lean into during interviews. Nothing unusual, at least not yet. Before long, though, the tone shifted. Each new appearance seemed stranger than the last. He kept circling back to ideas about illusion, manipulation, identity, and the way Hollywood can manufacture a polished version of a person that barely resembles who they really are.
You can tell Jimmy was panicking. We all know why.
Is that a gang sign? Have you
don't know what this is? It is the secret symbol of the Illuminati, and you're a part of it. Talk show hosts, people on television, people in sitcoms have been hired by the government to throw you off the track, to distract you, to make you laugh, and stuff like that, make you happy and docile so you don't know what's really going on.
Those comments didn't just catch attention, they fueled a wave of speculation online. For a lot of internet sleuths, that was the point where they believed the pressure around him really started to mount. That's also where Dave Chappelle gets pulled into the discussion. His name comes up because he has spent years hinting at what fame can do to people once they stop cooperating with the system around them. He rarely spells anything out in a direct way. Instead, he tends to speak in stories, fragments, and carefully chosen warnings that leave people connecting the dots themselves. Over time, he has talked about pressure behind the scenes, about public figures losing the sense of self, and about what can happen when someone refuses to meet certain industry expectations. Because of those past remarks, many online viewers have linked Jim Carrey to that same pattern. In their eyes, he became another possible example of a celebrity who changed after pushing back against something bigger than the public could see. Whether that theory holds up or not, it has clearly taken on a life of its own across social media. Everything intensified after that unusual appearance at the 2026 César Awards. The reaction was immediate. People online didn't wait long to start dissecting every second of it. Comment sections filled up fast with viewers saying the man they were watching didn't feel like the Jim Carrey they remembered. The face looked familiar, sure, but many insisted the presence felt different. Some pointed to the voice, others focused on the body language. A lot of viewers said his movement seemed more measured, less spontaneous, less like the energetic performer they had watched for years.
How's life? Everything good?
You know, it's so beautiful. It really is, especially when I'm absent from it.
Do you feel like you're separated from the rest of the world and what's going on?
No, not separated at all. In fact, it's the exact opposite. You know, don't get me wrong, you know, Jim Carrey is a great character, and I was lucky to get the part. But I don't think of that as me anymore.
Longtime fans began sharing side-by-side videos, comparing older clips to that appearance, and asking the same question over and over. What exactly feels off here? Once those comparison videos started circulating, the speculation went into overdrive. Suddenly, the old clone rumors came roaring back into the spotlight. The conversation spread across platforms at lightning speed, with people picking apart expressions, posture, timing, and speech, as if they were looking for hidden evidence in plain sight. What may have started as curiosity quickly turned into a full-blown internet theory machine. Part of what made it spread so fast was the emotional connection people already had to Jim Carrey. He wasn't just another celebrity being analyzed online. For many viewers, he represented a specific era, a certain kind of wild energy, unpredictability, and charisma that felt unmistakable. So when fans believed they were seeing something different, even in subtle ways, they didn't just notice it, they reacted strongly to it. That reaction is what kept the story alive. One clip became 10. 10 became hundreds. Every small detail got replayed, slowed down, and debated. The more people watched, the more convinced some of them became that this wasn't simply a different mood, a different phase, or a different version of the same person. In the minds of conspiracy-focused corners of the internet, it became something far bigger than that.
I don't exist. So they're all characters that I played, including Jim Carrey, including Joel Barish, including any of those things. They're all characters. Jim Carrey was a less intentional character, because I thought I was just building something that people would like.
To be fair, these are still online theories, not established facts. Even so, the reason the conversation refuses to die is simple. When a public figure starts talking about identity, illusion, and the machinery of fame, and then appears in a way that fans describe as unfamiliar, people are going to speculate. On the internet, that kind of mystery never stays small for long. No one has ever shown real evidence that Jim Carrey was actually replaced. Still, internet speculation rarely depends on hard proof. It spreads through repeated similarities, strange timing, and stories people believe line up a little too neatly. In those online circles, Jim Carrey began getting grouped into a much bigger theory. His name was mentioned alongside Kanye West, Gucci Mane, and Britney Spears. Different public figures, same claim from conspiracy communities. Someone speaks out, steps away, and later returns seeming unusually different. To people who already believe that pattern exists, Jim's story appeared to fit it perfectly. What made the theory grow even more was the way Jim had spoken about Hollywood before the rumors took off. He didn't exactly hide his opinions. On multiple occasions, he described fame as empty and treated celebrity culture like a performance that people take far too seriously. He even used major public events to make that point in front of cameras.
One moment in particular keeps getting pulled back into the spotlight. During a red carpet interview, Jim Carrey famously said that none of it had any real meaning. At the time, many viewers saw it as a bizarre, philosophical, or even funny remark. Now, people online revisit that clip as if it were a warning sign hiding in plain sight. In their view, he wasn't joking at all. They think he was exposing something deeper about the industry. That belief feeds directly into the larger narrative pushed across conspiracy spaces. According to that version of events, Hollywood is comfortable with criticism only up to a point. Once a celebrity with real influence starts publicly challenging the image, the system supposedly pushes back. Not because of one comment, but because some stars reach audiences in a way that makes their words hard to ignore. Jim Carrey, to many fans, was exactly that kind of voice. This is where the conversation starts taking a much heavier turn. Jim's name is not the only one people bring up when they talk about entertainers who stepped outside the script. Dave Chappelle gets mentioned constantly for the same reason. Years ago, he walked away from Hollywood at the absolute height of his success. His show was huge, his career was on fire, and there was an enormous amount of money still on the table.
Why'd you walk away from $50 million? Would you say you lost your mind, sort of?
I get a call on my cell phone from Hollywood. They're like, that pilot you did for Fox, looks like they want to pick it up. And I went out and I sat with these people in this room. Yeah, Dave, we really like the show, but we're thinking about the girl on the show. I think we should recast her.
Then, suddenly, he was gone. At the time, a lot of people didn't understand it. Some dismissed him. Others acted like he had made an irrational choice. From the outside, leaving that kind of position behind seemed impossible to explain. Why would someone turn their back on that level of fame, momentum, and opportunity just as everything was peaking?
Later on, when Dave Chappelle began speaking more openly, those old questions came roaring back. His decision no longer looked like just a career move to people who already distrusted the entertainment business. Instead, it became another piece of a much larger theory about what happens when major stars stop playing along. That is exactly why online communities keep linking these names together. In their eyes, it is not about isolated incidents. It is about a repeated sequence: public success, uncomfortable honesty, sudden disappearance, and a return that sparks even more questions. Whether those claims hold up is a different matter entirely. What matters for the internet is that the pattern feels convincing to the people repeating it. And once a theory gains momentum, every old interview, every red carpet clip,
and every unusual public appearance starts to look like part of the same puzzle. Jim Carrey's remarks about fame, his criticism of celebrity culture, Dave Chappelle's abrupt exit from the spotlight. For conspiracy-minded audiences, none of it seems random. They see connections everywhere, and those connections are what keep the story alive. Behind the cameras, there are often rumors about intense pressure, personal breakdowns, and the fear of being pushed into becoming someone you never agreed to be. A lot of people online believe Jim Carrey may have faced that exact kind of turning point. One theory claims he stepped away from certain exclusive Hollywood events and high-level social circles that powerful insiders supposedly expected him to attend. None of that has been proven, and it is important to keep that in mind. Still, once viewers began comparing that idea with the way Jim seemed to change in public afterward, the internet ran with it at full speed. Every interview, every appearance, every unusual moment suddenly became part of a much bigger story in the eyes of conspiracy communities.
Jim is far from the only celebrity pulled into this kind of narrative. Kanye has also been at the center of similar speculation, and in his case, one particular warning kept getting repeated everywhere online. He once said that if he disappeared and came back, it would not be him.
Kanye West might have been cloned. This tweet went viral of Kanye, and he looks completely different than how he used to, and people are saying that he could have been cloned. Not only that though, it got even scarier when Kanye said this to fans just a couple months back.
Ain't going nowhere, baby. If I ever went anywhere, we know why. You understand what I'm saying?
Some fans commented on this saying the crazy thing is he did end up disappearing, and now that he's back, he's super quiet and looks completely different.
That single statement was enough to ignite endless debate across conspiracy channels and social media pages. Not long after, Kanye was out of sight for weeks. There were no clear public updates, no detailed explanations, and no steady appearance trail for fans to follow. When he eventually returned, many people online immediately claimed he seemed different. Some described him as quieter. Others said he looked more restrained, more careful, almost as if his energy had completely shifted. Because of that, people began digging back through everything Kanye had said in the past. Old comments about handlers resurfaced. Discussions about medication came back into focus. Concerns he had raised about pressure from those around him were suddenly being viewed through a completely different lens. What once sounded like isolated statements started getting woven together into one larger, more dramatic theory. A major part of that renewed attention centered on Harley Pasternak. Kanye had publicly posted messages he said were from Harley, and those messages were widely interpreted online as containing threats to have him institutionalized again if he refused to cooperate. That alone caused a huge reaction. For many fans and conspiracy-minded viewers, it felt like a disturbing glimpse into something much deeper happening behind the scenes.
From there, the speculation only grew louder. Internet use connections were real or not. That is the framework many internet communities began building. At that point, speculation was no longer just about isolated incidents. It had turned into a larger belief that fame, power, and influence may come with pressures the public rarely sees. Once that idea took hold, every strange appearance and every cryptic statement became fuel for even more theories. Across social media, the conversation spread rapidly, and the more people talked about it, the more intense the narrative became. Place that beside Jim Carrey's very public comments about Hollywood, where he spoke about illusion, performance, and the idea of false identities, and it becomes easier to understand why online communities started racing to connect the pieces. Once his appearance seemed to shift, those theories picked up speed almost instantly. To many viewers, it looked like another celebrity who had stepped outside the script and returned noticeably changed.
Before long, Gucci Mane was pulled into the same conversation. His name kept surfacing because people never forgot how striking his transformation looked after prison. Earlier in his career, he appeared heavier, unpredictable, and visibly caught up in the chaotic public spiral. After prison, however, the contrast was impossible to miss. He came back leaner, more composed, and far more disciplined. Even the way he spoke and carried himself seemed different to a lot of people watching. That dramatic change became all the internet needed. Almost immediately, message boards and comment sections lit up with claims that the Gucci Mane who returned was somehow not the same person who had gone in. What might have been a personal turnaround was quickly recast online as something much stranger. Instead of seeing growth, some fans turned it into a full-blown replacement theory. The speculation only intensified when Gucci's ex, Mac Breezy, publicly added her own observation. She said that the Gucci she saw after prison did not feel like the same person she had known before. For many people online, that remark was treated like confirmation. Even though it was still just a personal impression, rumor-driven audiences took that one statement and pushed it far beyond what was actually said. One fan put it in the most direct way possible, pointing to Gucci Mane's past appearance and saying he was heavier and never seemed like someone who spent time in the gym. Comments like that fed into a much bigger pattern people believed they were noticing. In these theories, the story always seems to follow the same formula. A celebrity becomes outspoken, starts acting rebellious, or says too much in public. Soon after, that person disappears from view for a while. When they eventually return, they look cleaner, calmer, and more controlled. Because of that pattern, some online users begin grouping multiple names into the same narrative. Jim Carrey, Gucci Mane, others before them. Each case was treated like another version of the same mystery, whether or not the facts actually supported it. The transformation itself became the evidence in the eyes of rumor-driven audiences. Dave Chappelle's name also entered the discussion through internet speculation. According to those rumors, he allegedly believes Hollywood has methods for resetting celebrities who stop cooperating. Not in a literal science fiction sense, at least not in the version most people repeat, but through something more grounded and unsettling. The theory points instead to identity reconstruction, image control, psychological pressure, medication, isolation, and carefully managed reputations. In that version of the story, the person is still physically there, but the public version of them is reshaped until it feels almost unrecognizable. That idea is exactly why these theories keep spreading. They don't always rely on impossible technology or wild fantasy. Instead, they lean on something that feels more believable to people already suspicious of fame and power. A celebrity changes too much, too fast, and suddenly the internet starts asking whether it was really just personal growth or something far more calculated happening behind the scenes. At the center of all of this is a simple truth about online culture. When a famous person returns transformed, people rarely accept the obvious explanation first. They look for hidden motives, secret systems, and larger forces pulling the strings. Once that mindset takes over, every shift in personality, appearance, or behavior starts to look like proof of something darker. And that is exactly how these theories keep gaining momentum. Over time, Jim Carrey's public image only poured fuel on the speculation. In one era, he was openly criticizing the hollow side of fame, calling attention to the strange performance that surrounds celebrity culture. Not long after, he appeared far more reserved, more distant, and much less defiant than people remembered. That shift alone was enough to get the internet talking. Soon, newer appearances started making the rounds online, and viewers became obsessed with every detail. Many said his eyes didn't look the same. Others focused on his smile, describing it as stiff or unnatural. Some even argued that his overall presence felt separated from the version of Jim they had known for years. Once that kind of idea grabs hold online, it spreads fast and refuses to disappear. Things intensified when comparison clips began circulating everywhere. Side-by-side edits pushed the conversation into overdrive. Old Jim next to new Jim. Old Kanye next to new Kanye. Old Gucci next to new Gucci. Those videos weren't just framed as observations. They were presented like evidence. And for a lot of people watching, that made the theory feel bigger than random internet gossip. Here's where the conversation takes an even stranger turn. Not everyone discussing clones means it in a literal science fiction way. A large group online uses the word as a symbol. They are not necessarily claiming that celebrities are being duplicated in secret labs. Instead, they believe something more psychological and, to many, even more unsettling is happening. According to that interpretation, the original personality of a public figure gets worn down, reshaped, and eventually replaced in front of everyone. What the audience sees afterward is a more polished version, one designed to be easier to sell,
easier to manage and far more predictable. In that reading, clone becomes shorthand for a person who looks the same on the outside, but no longer seems like the same individual underneath.
That idea hits people hard because it doesn't sound like fantasy anymore. It starts to feel less like a bizarre conspiracy and more like a dark commentary on power, image, and the entertainment machine. Suddenly, the discussion shifts away from laboratories and toward industry pressure, branding, and what fame can do to a person over time. That is also why Dave Chappelle's old warnings keep finding their way back into public conversation every few years. His name gets brought up whenever people start talking about artists who change dramatically after public battles, pressure, or a disappearance from the spotlight. For many viewers, his story feels connected to this larger fear that celebrity can transform people in ways the public doesn't fully understand. Meanwhile, the online reaction has stayed intense. Comment sections under older interview clips keep reigniting the same debate. One person wrote, "This is the real Jim Carrey." Then they replaced him. Another said, "This is not the same Jim Carrey we knew." Statements like that continue to pile up, turning isolated opinions into a much larger narrative. Whether someone sees it as a literal theory or a metaphor for what the industry does to famous people, the reason it keeps surviving is simple. It plays on something viewers already feel. People notice when a star changes. They notice when the energy feels off, when the confidence fades, or when the personality that once felt electric suddenly seems muted. In Jim Carrey's case, those differences have kept the speculation alive, and the internet has shown no sign of letting it go. Here's the part that has people glued to the conversation. Across social media, a lot of viewers believe that when famous people distance themselves from powerful circles, the outcome tends to look the same. They either return saying very little, or they come back feeling almost unrecognizable. That's where the real curiosity begins. What actually goes on in Hollywood once a celebrity stops going along with the system around them? Behind all the red carpets, headlines, and polished interviews, how much influence do major industry figures really have over a star's image, career, and public identity? It's a question that keeps resurfacing, especially when fans notice dramatic shifts that seem too sudden to ignore. Many people point to examples that continue to spark debate. Maybe Jim Carrey simply evolved with age and experience. Perhaps Kanye changed after years of highly public ups and downs. Gucci Mane could have truly decided to rebuild his life after prison and move in a healthier direction. Those are all possible explanations, and they shouldn't be dismissed. Still, another idea keeps gaining traction online. Some believe the industry has a way of reshaping people once they stop fitting the role that made them valuable in the first place. According to that theory, stepping away from the machine doesn't just affect someone's opportunities. It can also change how they present themselves, how they speak, how they act, and even how the public is encouraged to see them. Whether that's a fair reading or just internet speculation, it's easy to understand why so many people keep talking about it. What makes these discussions so hard to shake is the pattern fans think they're seeing. The more they compare before and after moments, the more they feel like certain changes can't be brushed off as coincidence. Once that suspicion takes hold, every interview, every appearance, and every career turn starts to look like another clue. Suddenly, what once seemed like ordinary personal growth becomes something viewers want to examine much more closely.
Of course, no one can claim to know every detail from the outside. Public life is complicated, and people change for all kinds of personal reasons. Fame, pressure, age, trauma, success, failure, and time itself can transform anyone. Even so, the mystery is exactly what keeps these theories alive. As long as there are unanswered questions, people will continue connecting dots and wondering what's really happening when the cameras are off. Now, it's your turn to weigh in. What do you think really happened to him? Share your take in the comments, because this is the kind of topic that always gets people talking. If you thought this story was already intense, there's even more waiting in the next video. The conversation only gets deeper from here.